Because even God likes to feel good about himself. And when he feels good about himself or she feels good about herself, she will give you tathastu. Whatever you want. Undeserving candidate will pass in the exam. We are right now great, lots of yajnas are going on to get that visa. Give and receive, give and receive. And these models are there in our tradition. That's the churning of Lakshmi, the giving and the receiving, giving and the receiving. This journey of dealing with opposite people, people you don't like, of dealing with Saraswati and Lakshmi, the conflict, and recognizing the importance of power relationships. How do bosses behave with subordinates? How do you deal with your team members? How do you handle conflict? How do you ensure everybody is churning, not in a tug of war? If there is a mantra you should take to churn the ocean, stop doing tug of war. Anybody who doesn't understand tug of war, just watch television. It's just tug of war. It will never create Amrit. When Amrit comes, halahal will also come. But Amrit will come. Otherwise the ocean will be still. We'll only be talking about progress and success. You will only see the potential in the market, but no butter, no ghee. And that is a tragedy that we want to avoid. And that's what I would like you to do. I want you to spend time looking and identifying who is your Devata, what is your Swaha, who are the Asuras that you have to work with. Do you churn or are you involved in a tug of war? Is your life only about Lakshmi and Saraswati? Where is the Durga? Do you make people insecure or do you make them feel secure? Does your product make people insecure or secure? Does your sales pitch make people insecure or secure? If it makes me feel secure, there is a strong possibility of success. And I think these are factors that we must keep in mind. We are, especially people who have a very strong engineering background, they love that Saraswati world. They love it, it's beautiful. But the goddesses always come together. And if you take one goddess over the other two will make your life miserable. And you don't want a Lakshmi angry with you, she'll just not come inside your house. And when Durga is angry, you will only have a combative war zone. And never, you will have a Rana Bhumi, never a Ranga Bhumi, where you will perform and make the world a happy place. And I hope all of you create in your products that Ranga Bhumi, where people perform and feel happy and make money and get all that they want. Give that Swaha and you will get your Tathastu. Thank you. Question answer. Yes, ma'am. We'll take a mic, please. Hi. Thank you.
Earlier, and that we see the impact, not impact, but the connection between mythology and management a lot in the West, which is evident factually also.
Yes.
What are your views on when it will come into the Indian scientific methodology, education system and everything? Because today we don't see that at all.
You see, scientific methodology is a very ugly term. Because much of human behavior is not based on evidence. It is based on trust. The moment you use the word trust, science goes out of the window. But trust is what makes you buy that Apple phone. Not because you have actually experienced it, but because 100 people have experienced and have told you it is nice, and you start feeling you'll trust it, even though 90% of those apps you'll never use. But you'll buy it. What happens in Indian thought, we don't trust our culture. We try to understand our culture using Western templates. So step one, we don't trust it. Those who trust it, try to understand it. Therefore, you're asking me, the question was about, is it scientific? The words are because that model of thinking is a very Western model. Indian model is based on continuous sensitivity with the ecosystem. It's a very different model of thinking. You see, all over the world you'll find logic. But one of the key weaknesses of the Western civilization, and this is, you can read its history, every few years it goes into a violent confrontation across the world. The last 70 years have been the most peaceful we have ever experienced in our life. The whole history of humanity, such peace was not there, only in the last 70. Before that, you had World War II. Before that, you had World War I, where Europe was wiped out. We Indians don't know what it meant. The Western model is based on what is called linearity. So it's goal orientation. It's management by objective. I want to achieve that. The model which I explained to you is called management by consequence. Swaha tathastu. My success is a consequence of something else. It is not the result of task. It is the result of consequence because other people are involved over whom I have no control. I have no control over other people. And therefore, I can only, the consequence. This model is a new idea right now. What is the Hindi word for consequence? Karma. Swaha tathastu, karma. Karma is swaha, karma is tathastu. What you give is karma, what you receive is also karma. Now this is called management by consequence. Now it is not framed in medical colleges because people will say, hey, it's not scientific, give it the mathematical. So we have restricted knowledge to the scientific methodology. And therefore our understanding of human beings is very poor. We have actually come to the conclusion, when I read books on artificial intelligence, I'm hearing this word algorithm being used so much. Nobody talks about imagination. We are humans because we imagine. Algorithms are based on predictability. Why do you want science? Because you want to predict nature. Why do you want to predict nature? Because you want to control nature. What threatens you? Things that you cannot control. And what is Indian philosophy all about? Ocean of milk. Nothing can be controlled. Because human imagination will always be a step ahead of your algorithm. The human imagination is what the scriptures call Purusha. And Prakriti is what you can control through algorithm. But you can't, because no matter how much you do, nature will challenge you. You can't predict everything. So the Indian model demands a paradigmic shift. I'll explain it to you simply using IT language. Your body is like a hardware. So everybody in the world has the same hardware. We think, not really, but some people have more, they are taller, we are shorter. Hardware. The myth that you live in, the word mythology is the operating system. And religion is the app. Western ideas are on a different operating system. You can't use that operating system to explain Indian thought, which is not only an operating system, it is an open source operating system. That makes it extremely complicated and terrifying because you don't know what open source, मतलब पता नहीं कल कोई patch लगा देगा सब change हो जाएगा. This is the difference you're talking about. It demands great courage to step out of a very stable, locked in, controlled operating system. So I am talking at the level of operating systems. I'm not talking at the level of apps. So I never use word like religions. But management, modern management by objective is based on a Western operating system. Management by consequence means you have to step out of that operating system and enter this open source operating system we call Indian thought. You can use any word for it. We don't know these words because the words are political. but it's a different operating system. Yeah?
Do you see that paradigm shift happening gradually?
Devdutt, a
This is
question
objective driven.
here. Devdutt, a question here, this side, on your left.
Yeah. Here, and then I'll take the gentleman there. Yeah.
Sure. So, your tip for startups for churning Lakshmi, should they learn more to pitch to the investor or listen to the customer?
It depends
one
on the.
over the other?
It depends on the product. It depends on the product. At a certain stage, you need your investor to believe in you. At least in the initial stages, you need that money. And if he's a smart investor, the smart investor will check whether you are also looking at the customer. So that's the thing. But it's very easy to play with the investor if you know the tricks to get investment without bothering about the customer. It's called boss management. And it's very good for your career. The thing is, you have to decide who is the Devata, upstream or downstream. And that's a very important thing. It also varies depending, as I said, if it's a B2B product, it's very different. If it's a B2C product, it's very different. If it's a path-breaking idea, then definitely investor. Because if he doesn't get it, you won't get the kind of funds that you need to create. And he has to believe it, and he has to have the courage to deal with uncertainty and failure, which is the difficult part, right? Because it's his money, he wants ROI. And he is taking calculated risks, but it is a risk. So if you are sensitive to his insecurity or her insecurity, you know how to make your pitch. I'll give you a simple example, and it's a very stupid example, but I have seen presentations which are unreadable. $1 million presentation. I'll never forget one. I was working for a short time in a, what is it called, consulting firm, and I remember my partner kept saying that your font is not correct, sound, and I kept saying, why is he so bothered? Like he would make us wait all night because a font was not aligned. Finally told me that these 3 pieces of paper are worth 3 crores for me. This is the only thing I'm giving, because the only thing I'm selling at that time was knowledge. I have nothing to give him except 3 pieces of paper. It has to be perfect. I have seen $1 million pitches to investors coming which are so badly written. Because that person who's sending it thinks, I'm such an intelligent person, English doesn't matter. No, it does matter. Presentation matters. Saraswati matters, but the presentation is Durga, power. You give me confidence in you. I am trusting you with every step I take. All these little things make a difference. And we don't know what will work. Some investors like it to be organized, some don't like it to be organized. So that is the game. So as I said, context. Yes, sir.
So typically, myth word is used in a derogatory sense.
Sorry?
Myth.
Yes.
It's just a myth.
Yes.
So when we talk about Indian mythology,
Yes.
because you are one of those who made this phrase, this word very famous, very good. So I wanted to understand how do you define mythology? Because the original word myth coming from Greek, it actually refers to something sacred. But in English, when you talk about it, it's, as I said, it's just your myth and it's just as if it doesn't exist. So on one side, we are trying to inspire and encourage us Indians to learn from our own scriptures, which you just mentioned, where there's a lot of knowledge. But on the other side, the word that is picked up comes from the general usage, which is very derogatory.
Yes.
So that has, I mean, if you can explain that.
You know, 100 years ago, I could say this audience is so gay. 100 years ago, if I said this audience is a gay audience, it would have been a perfectly acceptable statement. Because what did gay mean 100 years ago?
Happy.
When you're happy and you gay, clap your hands. If you say it today, children will get offended. Parents will be violently angry with the teacher. Because that's a nursery rhyme, right? If you're happy and you gay, clap your hands. Because the meaning of the word gay has shifted over 100 years. In the same way, words, in Sanskrit there's a word called nyaya. What does it mean? No. In Sanskrit it means rational deliberation, reasoned thinking. It's nyaya darshana. It is systematic rational thinking. That's the meaning of the word nyaya in Sanskrit. In Hindi, it becomes nyaya, justice. They don't mean the same thing. I deliberately use the word mythology is to agitate people to think. Do not submit to British meanings of words. These words have a long history. 2000 years ago, they meant the story, which is indifferent to rationality. The British, Europeans, not just the British, the Germans, the Europeans, used it to say the stories, the false stories of the savages. Today, myth means the stories of humanity, because fact is everybody's truth. Fiction is nobody's truth. Myth is somebody's truth. It belongs to somebody, it is not universal. So Jesus is a myth, which means it is someone's truth. You have to respect it. So it is neither fact nor fiction. It is somewhere in the middle. This is what we don't understand. It's an operating system without which your apps won't work. But the operating system is not the hardware. It is a method of thinking. So today when you are studying, I don't know how many of you all are familiar with books like From Bacteria to Bach, The Evolution of the Human Mind. When you start studying these subjects, you will realize that truth is an absurd concept. Knowledge